In the rush of daily living, we often chase after a sense of completion. We fill our calendars, our homes, and our minds, believing that peace will arrive once we finally have enough, achieve enough, or become enough. Yet the strange truth is that the more we run towards satisfaction, the more it seems to drift further away. Modern life gives us everything: comfort, technology, connection, yet it quietly takes something too: the capacity to simply be. Our attention is constantly pulled outward, trained to search for meaning in possessions, recognition, and relationships. And still, a quiet restlessness follows us, whispering at the edges of our success. Something is missing. This is the paradox of the human condition. We try to mend inner emptiness with outer abundance. We look to the world to save us from our own unease. But the world cannot complete what was never broken. The more we depend on the external, the more fragile our peace becomes, because the external is always changing. Buddhism teaches that this restlessness arises from ignorance, avidya, not a lack of intelligence, but a misunderstanding of where happiness truly comes from. We look for permanence in what is impermanent. We try to find lasting safety in things that, by their very nature, must pass away. So, we accumulate new goals, new experiences, new identities. For a brief moment, we feel alive. Then the satisfaction fades and the cycle begins again. This is not failure. It is simply how the conditioned mind works. It believes with innocent sincerity that if it tries a little harder, grasps a little tighter, happiness will finally stay. But peace cannot be achieved by force. It is not a reward earned from doing, but a natural state revealed in being. When the clouds of craving and fear begin to part, the sky of awareness, calm and spacious, has always been there. To see this requires a different kind of movement. Not forward into another desire, but inward toward understanding. The Buddha once said, "In this fathom-long body, there is the origin of the world, the ending of the world, and the path leading to the ending of the world." He was pointing not to heaven or another place, but to the mind itself. The journey, then, begins not by changing what surrounds us, but by looking gently at what stirs within us, to pause, to breathe, to listen. In the silence beneath our constant striving lies a truth that does not depend on success or failure. The world outside may never fully satisfy the heart. But the awareness that sees this truth, that awareness is already free. Deep within the human mind lies a quiet tension, the wish to make everything go our way. We crave stability in a world that constantly changes. We long to shape life according to our plans, to bend uncertainty into certainty, and to protect what we love from loss. But the more we try to control the shifting currents of existence, the more suffering takes root. In Buddhist understanding, this struggle begins with tanha, craving, the thirst for things to be other than they are. It takes many forms: desire for pleasure, fear of pain, attachment to opinions, the need to be seen, the longing for things to last. Each form is a subtle attempt to resist impermanence, and yet, impermanence is the very fabric of life. We cling because we forget that change is not our enemy. It is the teacher that shows us the futility of grasping. When we hold too tightly to what must move, we create friction within ourselves. The mind grows restless, measuring what is against what it wishes. Out of this gap, suffering arises. Modern psychology mirrors this truth. When the mind resists reality, tension builds. We enter what therapists call the control trap. The more we try to suppress unwanted feelings or force outcomes, the stronger those feelings and fears become. Like trying to hold water in our fists, the effort only exhausts us. Buddhism does not condemn this instinct. It recognizes it as part of human conditioning. The need for control once held us survive, but it cannot help us awaken. Control can build walls, but walls cannot bring peace. Peace requires openness, an unclenching of the inner hand. When we start to observe the subtle ways we grasp, wanting others to understand us, wanting life to unfold on schedule, wanting our emotions to behave, we begin to see how fragile that grip truly is. Beneath it lies fear. Fear of loss, fear of meaninglessness, fear of being nothing. But if we look closely, even fear is not solid. It rises, peaks, and fades, like every wave on the ocean. To see this is to glimpse the beginning of freedom. Each time we release our demand that life be different, a small light of clarity appears. The heart softens, the breath deepens. Control transforms into trust, not blind faith, but an intimate knowing that life flows on its own, even without our constant interference. The Buddha's teaching is not to abandon action, but to act without clinging to results, to care deeply, yet not be consumed by attachment. This balance, effort without grasping, is the quiet art of living wisely. When we loosen our need to control, the world does not fall apart. It simply reveals itself as it truly is, dynamic, alive, and ever-changing. And in that recognition, suffering begins to lose its hold. Letting go is among the most misunderstood ideas in spiritual practice. To many, it sounds like giving up, withdrawing from life, or suppressing emotion. But in the Buddhist view, letting go is not rejection. It is liberation. It means releasing the burden of resistance, seeing reality clearly, and allowing life to flow through us without clinging or fear. The heart of letting go lies in understanding impermanence. Everything we hold dear, youth, relationships, success, even our own bodies, is in a continuous process of change. We know this intellectually, but emotionally, we resist it. We build walls against the truth that everything born must eventually fade. And in doing so, we suffer. The Buddha compared this to holding on to a burning coal. We think clinging will protect us, but it only burns our hands. When we release the coal, the pain lessens. Not because the world changed, but because we stopped fighting its nature. Letting go, then, is not passive. It is an act of profound intelligence. It aligns us with what is real. Modern psychology echoes this insight through acceptance-based therapy. When we allow emotions to arise without judgment, they lose their grip. Resistance feeds them. Acceptance dissolves them. This doesn't mean we approve of everything that happens. It means we stop waging war against what already is. To let go is to trust the rhythm of life. Like a leaf surrendering to the wind, we learn to move with events instead of against them. This does not make us weak. It makes us fluid, adaptable, and awake. But the process requires courage. The mind will protest. If I stop controlling, everything will collapse. Yet when we actually let go, even for a moment, we feel something unexpected, a quiet relief, as though the weight of the world no longer rests entirely on our shoulders. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a gentle practice, repeated throughout the day. We let go of the need to be right, the need to rush, the need to please. We release the story of how life should be and return to the simple reality of how it is. Each moment we do this, we step closer to freedom. In the teachings, this is called upekkha, equanimity, a balanced state of mind that meets joy and sorrow with equal openness. It is the space where the mind no longer swings wildly between craving and aversion. In this stillness, wisdom begins to shine. To let go does not mean losing what matters. It means discovering what cannot be lost. Beneath all change, there is a quiet awareness untouched by birth or death. To rest in that awareness is the essence of letting go, returning home to the peace that has never left us. Mindfulness is not a technique we perform, but a way of being. It is the gentle returning of our awareness again and again to this very moment. Beneath the noise of thought and memory, there is always a living stillness, a simplicity of experience that does not need to be fixed or improved. To be mindful is to remember this truth. In Buddhist teaching, mindfulness, sati, is the bridge between confusion and clarity. It is the art of observing without grasping, of feeling without drowning. When we breathe consciously, walk attentively, or simply sit in silence, we are not escaping the world. We are entering it more deeply. The taste of food, the sound of rain, the texture of the air, all reveal the sacredness of ordinary life when seen through awareness. The modern world has trained our attention to scatter. We multitask, scroll, and plan ahead, living everywhere but here. Mindfulness reverses this movement. It brings the wandering mind back home, one breath at a time, and in that return, the heart begins to unclench. Mindfulness does not require perfect calm. It simply asks that we notice what is happening, thoughts, sensations, emotions, without judgment. This noticing is not cold observation, it is warm, compassionate seeing. When anger arises, we do not suppress it. We breathe and silently acknowledge anger is here. Already, the space between awareness and reaction begins to widen. From this space, freedom becomes possible. Neuroscience confirms what the Buddha intuited. Awareness changes the brain. Each time we observe rather than react, the circuits of fear and craving weaken. The mind learns that it can experience discomfort without being consumed by it. Gradually, awareness becomes our default resting place rather than anxiety or desire. To live mindfully is to live slowly enough to meet life as it is. We begin to sense the pauses between breaths, the silence behind words, the stillness beneath action. We realize that peace is not somewhere else. It is the background of every moment waiting to be noticed. The Buddha compared mindfulness to a lamp carried through darkness. It does not fight the night. It simply reveals what was unseen. In the same way, awareness does not erase our struggles, but it illuminates them with understanding. We see our patterns clearly, how we chase, resist, or escape, and through seeing, they begin to loosen. Presence is the medicine for a restless age. It teaches us that we do not need to reach for peace. Peace arises naturally when we stop running. Every mindful breath is a small act of freedom. Every quiet pause, a doorway back to ourselves. When we live from presence, nothing external needs to change for us to feel whole. The world may still whirl in chaos, but the mind remains anchored, breathing gently with the rhythm of now. Most of our suffering does not come from what happens, but from how we respond to what happens. A single moment of pain, rejection, loss, uncertainty quickly multiplies as the mind loops around it, adding fear, judgment, and resistance. This loop, repeated countless times, becomes the architecture of our unhappiness. In Buddhism, this cycle is described as samudaya, the arising of suffering through craving and aversion. When something pleasant arises, we cling to it, hoping to make it last. When something unpleasant arises, we push it away, hoping to make it disappear. The mind swings endlessly between these poles, like a pendulum that never rests. Each swing creates friction. Emotions, thoughts, and bodily sensations feed one another in a self-reinforcing circle. For example, anger triggers tension in the body. That tension deepens our sense of being wronged. The story of anger strengthens, and the loop continues. But at its core, every emotion is impermanent. If left alone, without judgment or suppression, it naturally fades. Modern psychology describes the same mechanism. Emotional loops form when we mistake thoughts for facts. The brain repeats patterns that once kept us safe, but now only keep us trapped. Awareness is the key that interrupts the loop. When we notice our reaction as it unfolds, when we simply say, this is anger, or fear is here, the automatic cycle loses power. This noticing is not analysis, it is presence. The mind does not need to dissect every emotion. It needs only to observe with gentle curiosity. Like watching clouds drift through the sky, we can watch our emotions come and go without identifying with them. Buddhist psychology calls this bare attention, the ability to witness experience without adding a story. In that moment of witnessing, the emotion is no longer an enemy. It becomes a teacher, revealing the conditions that gave rise to it. Fear may show us where we are clinging. Sadness may show us where we have loved deeply. Anger may show us where our boundaries were crossed. The practice is to pause before reacting. When we notice the surge of emotion, we breathe. We let the body soften. We allow the wave to pass before speaking or acting. This pause is not weakness. It is mastery, the ability to choose awareness over impulse. Over time, this gentle awareness rewires our responses. The emotional storms still arise, but they no longer uproot us. We begin to feel an underlying steadiness, a quiet knowing that no emotion defines who we are. The Buddha once compared the mind to a lute. When the strings are too tight, the music is harsh. When too loose, there is no sound. Balance lies in tuning the mind gently, neither suppressing nor indulging emotions. In this balance, peace becomes not a distant goal, but a living state that breathes with every moment. Understanding the truth of letting go is one thing. Living it is another. The mind often agrees with wisdom but struggles to embody it. Years of conditioning have taught us to grasp, to fix, control, and analyze. Letting go, therefore, must become a practice, a daily return to simplicity and awareness. The first step is to pause. Before reacting, speaking, or deciding, we create a small space of silence. In that space, awareness can breathe. We might close our eyes, feel the body, notice the air moving through the nostrils. This small act interrupts the chain of reactivity that normally governs our lives. The second step is to observe without judgment. As thoughts arise, we do not argue with them. We simply see them as mental events. The Buddha described thoughts as bubbles on water, appearing, glistening, and bursting. When we stop chasing or resisting them, they dissolve naturally. A simple meditation helps cultivate this. Sit quietly, spine relaxed, but upright. Bring your attention to the breath, not to control it, but to feel it. When the mind wanders, which it will, gently bring it back, without scolding or frustration. Each return is an act of letting go. Each breath, a reminder that life is unfolding right now. The third step is to soften resistance in the body. Emotions live not just in the mind, but in muscles, shoulders, and stomachs. When pain arises, breathe into the place where it lives. Let the breath melt the armor around it. Sometimes awareness alone is enough to loosen what years of control have built. Next, bring mindfulness into movement. Walking, washing dishes, or drinking tea, all can become meditation. Feel each step, each motion. When the mind drifts into past or future, gently guide it home. Awareness deepens through repetition like a path cleared by many footsteps. The fifth step is compassion. Letting go can feel like loss. Be kind to the parts of you that still cling. When fear whispers, "I can't release this," listen softly. Even fear, when seen clearly, begins to calm. Compassion transforms letting go from a battle into an embrace. Lastly, practice gratitude. Gratitude shifts the mind from what is missing to what is present. Each time you notice beauty, a bird's call, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of your breath, you loosen the grip of dissatisfaction. Gratitude is the gentle hand that opens the fist of craving. Through these steps, letting go becomes less of an idea and more of a rhythm. It moves through each breath, each action. Over time, you begin to notice that nothing needs to be forced. Life unfolds on its own. The practice does not end with meditation. It continues in every moment you choose awareness over resistance. To let go is not to escape life. It is to live it more deeply, with eyes open and heart unguarded. In this openness, the ordinary becomes sacred, and peace ceases to be a destination. It becomes the way itself. In a world overflowing with noise, silence feels almost foreign. We fill every empty space with words, with screens, with background sound, afraid of what might emerge if everything stopped. Yet, it is precisely within that stillness that understanding begins to bloom. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the ground from which life can be heard. Buddhism teaches that beneath the constant chatter of the mind lies a vast, quiet awareness, unchanging, spacious, and compassionate. When we fall into silence, we are not losing ourselves. We are returning to that awareness. The mind begins to settle, and what once seemed cloudy becomes clear. Thoughts still arise, but we see them for what they are, passing ripples on the surface of still water. To sit in silence is to rediscover the language of being. In the beginning, the restlessness may feel unbearable. The mind demands stimulation, grasping for something to do. But if we remain patient, something shifts. The layers of noise start to peel away, revealing a deeper rhythm, one not made of words, but of presence. In the quiet, we begin to see that truth does not need to shout. The insights we chase through thought often arrive gently when we stop trying to force them. This is why the Buddha and countless teachers emphasized noble silence, not as a withdrawal from life, but as a way of listening to it more deeply. Modern psychology agrees. When the nervous system rests, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of awareness, activates. In silence, the body recalibrates, the mind detoxifies, and creativity reawakens. But this silence need not belong only to meditation halls. It can live in the pauses between words, in the early hours before the world awakens, in the act of simply breathing without agenda. To practice silence is to trust that we do not need to fill every gap. We begin to see that stillness itself speaks through intuition, through the soft unfolding of clarity. The more we learn to listen, the more life reveals its quiet intelligence. True silence is not fragile. It is not easily broken by sound. Even amidst noise, traffic, or conversation, one can remain inwardly still. This is the deeper silence the Buddha spoke of. The silence that is not the absence of sound, but the absence of conflict within. When this inner silence deepens, our perception changes. We respond rather than react. We listen rather than argue. The world becomes less of a battlefield and more of a mirror, reflecting peace wherever peace is found within. In silence, we do not escape the world. We finally meet it. We realize that truth has been whispering all along, waiting for us to stop talking over it. And in that wordless clarity, life begins to make quiet sense again. Spiritual understanding is not meant to remain on the meditation cushion. True wisdom must walk with us into our workplaces, our relationships, our moments of loneliness. It is there in the friction of daily life that awareness is tested and strengthened. At work, mindfulness turns ordinary effort into a form of meditation. We often rush through tasks as though the goal was somewhere else, forgetting that the process itself is life unfolding. When we bring presence to what we do, the smallest action becomes meaningful. Typing an email, cleaning a space, speaking with a colleague, all can be expressions of mindfulness. The Buddha taught that right livelihood is not only about ethics, but also about attention. Doing one thing at a time, fully, without agitation. In relationships, wisdom shows itself as compassion and deep listening. Most conflicts arise not from malice, but from misunderstanding, the desire to be heard colliding with the fear of not being seen. When we pause and truly listen, without preparing our reply, something sacred happens. The barrier between self and other softens. We begin to see that everyone we meet carries the same wish, to be free from suffering, to feel at peace. This recognition transforms interaction into empathy. But even love, when clung to, can become a form of attachment. We must learn to hold others gently without possession. To care deeply, yet without control, is one of the highest forms of wisdom. It allows love to breathe, to be generous rather than fearful, to be a source of freedom rather than dependence. And then there is solitude, the space many fear but few understand. In solitude, the mind confronts itself without distraction. At first, it may bring discomfort, even emptiness. But if we stay with it, solitude ripens into stillness. We begin to realize that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Solitude becomes a mirror in which we meet the fullness of our own presence. In all these realms, work, relationships, solitude, the same principle applies. Awareness transforms experience. When we act without awareness, even success feels hollow. When we act with awareness, even simplicity feels sacred. The quality of consciousness we bring to each moment matters more than the outcome of the moment itself. Buddhism calls this integrated practice, the seamless weaving of mindfulness into every aspect of living. The monk sweeping the courtyard and the parent caring for a child are on the same path when their actions are done with presence and compassion. There is no separation between meditation and life. Life itself is meditation in motion. When wisdom enters our daily rhythm, something beautiful happens. Work becomes service. Relationships become growth. Solitude becomes renewal. And the ordinary moments, walking, speaking, breathing, become gateways to awakening. In this way, the world does not distract us from the path. It becomes the path itself. Every meeting, every challenge, every quiet hour alone, each one an invitation to live from awareness, with a heart that sees clearly and loves without fear. There was once a wanderer who traveled across mountains and deserts in search of peace. He visited temples, followed teachers, read sacred texts, and practiced countless rituals. Yet still, a quiet restlessness lingered in his heart. Wherever he went, he carried with him an invisible storm, a constant longing for something just beyond reach. One day, exhausted from his search, he came upon a hidden valley. In its center lay a lake so still that it seemed made of glass. The air was cool and silent. He knelt beside the water, hoping to find calm in its reflection. But as he looked, he saw not peace, but turmoil, the surface rippling with the echo of his own agitation. Angry, he threw a stone into the lake. Waves scattered outward, distorting the image further. "Even this place is not pure," he said. "Even here, peace is impossible." But as he sat down in despair, the ripples slowly faded. The water began to clear, and there, reflected in the mirror-like surface, he saw the sky, vast, luminous, and unchanged. In that stillness, he understood. The lake had always been calm. It was his own disturbance that had obscured its clarity. The peace he sought was never missing. It was simply hidden beneath the waves he himself created. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." The wanderer realized the truth of this. All his journeys, his teachers, his striving, though valuable, had been pointing him back to this very moment, to the still lake within his own heart. He began to practice a new kind of meditation, not to chase enlightenment, but to watch his own mind as he had watched the lake. When anger arose, he did not cast stones of judgment. When sadness appeared, he did not stir the waters of resistance. He simply observed, patiently waiting for the surface to settle. Over time, his mind grew clear. The reflections he once feared, the memories, the doubts, the loneliness, lost their power. He learned that the lake of awareness is never truly disturbed. Only the surface changes. Beneath it lies the same silent depth, the same unbroken stillness. And so, he stopped wandering. Not because the world had nothing to teach him, but because he finally understood where the true pilgrimage led, not across deserts or mountains, but inward. When we too stop throwing stones, when we no longer demand that life be perfectly still before we rest, peace finds us. Like the lake, the mind does not need to be empty to be clear. It only needs to stop fighting its own reflection. The story of the mirror lake reminds us that what we seek through effort is already here in awareness. When the water is undisturbed, the sky reveals itself naturally, limitless, silent, and free. All journeys, whether through the world or the heart, arrive at the same realization. Nothing external can save you, because the peace you seek is already within. The mind may wander through 1,000 desires, 1,000 fears, but in the end, every path circles back to awareness itself, the quiet witness of all experience. When we stop searching outside ourselves, something subtle begins to awaken. The endless striving softens, the restlessness quiets, and a gentle clarity arises. we begin to see that we were never truly lost, only distracted. The mind had mistaken its own reflections for reality, chasing mirages across the desert of becoming. But the oasis was always here, in the present moment. The Buddha once compared enlightenment to the dawning of light after a long night. The darkness was never separate from the light. It was only the absence of seeing. In the same way, our suffering is not proof of something missing, but a reminder to look deeper. Beneath every fear lies awareness. Beneath every craving lies the same pure consciousness that has always been. This realization does not make life easy, nor does it erase pain. It transforms the way we hold pain. Instead of resisting, we learn to breathe with it, to meet it with the same compassion we would offer a wounded friend. In that acceptance, suffering begins to dissolve. It loses its solidity and reveals its nature as passing experience, not identity. To live from this space is to live lightly. We still work, love, struggle, and dream. But our center no longer depends on outcomes. We begin to act not out of fear or need, but out of clarity and care. Even small gestures, listening, breathing, smiling, become expressions of awakening. In Buddhist practice, this is the flowering of wisdom and compassion together. Wisdom sees that everything changes. Compassion moves gently within that change. When both arise, we live not as seekers but as participants in the great unfolding of life. The world around us will continue to move, sometimes chaotic, sometimes beautiful. But when the inner light is seen, it remains steady through it all. This light is not dramatic or loud. It is the quiet radiance of awareness itself. It shines in every breath, every act of kindness, every moment of still presence. So, as this reflection ends, pause for a moment. Feel the breath enter and leave. Notice the simplicity of being here. Beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath everything that comes and goes, there is a silent knowing that simply is. That knowing is you. Nothing external will ever save you, because you were never truly in danger. You were only asked to remember, to look within, and see the light that has always been shining there.